Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Know Thy Enemy, the series where we always take a look ahead at the upcoming opponents for the Cincinnati Bengals, examine some of their strengths and weaknesses, some players to watch, and then talk about Bengals' keys to victories if they want to try and maybe actually finish a game all the way through this week and play all four quarters. So we'll see what avenues the Bengals might be able to take to try and secure that very elusive victory this week. Steelers have been a unique team this season, winning games without touchdowns, a lot of field goals, defense playing lights out, helping an offense along until Russell Wilson came back from injury. Since week 7, when Russ came back in his first game, Steelers offense is 20th in EPA per play, 31st in success rate, and 17th in drop back EPA, as well as 26th in EPA per rush. They also, interestingly, have the 5th highest play action rate among any NFL team since Russ came back. So definitely something the Bengals defense is going to be want to be cognizant of when they're playing this weekend. On the defense, talking about how great of a unit they've been. Oftentimes when we've been talking about the AFC North teams this year, it's been talking about how the defenses aren't as good as you might expect for the division, but the Steelers are definitely an exception there. On the season as a whole, they're 6th in EPA per play allowed, 5th in drop back EPA, 11th in rushing, and 12th in success rate. Taking a little bit closer look at Russell Wilson and his numbers since he's gotten back into the fold for the Steelers. 16th in PFF passing grade since week 7. So right there, about average. 8th in yards per attempt and big time throw percentage. So taking his chances down the field. Also 5th in average depth of target. So seeing a little bit of that play action deep shot game really kind of manifest itself in Russ's numbers. Also 7th best turnover worthy play percentage. So despite having some of this deeper average depth of target and kind of downfield passing game, they have been taking care of the ball. And looking at some of the numbers that aren't as glamorous for him so far this season, he is 20th in adjusted completion percentage, which kind of lends itself that way when you have a deeper passing game, higher difficulty. 25th in pressure to sack percentage, which is interesting because he's definitely a guy who in his career has liked to create, but has kind of lost a little bit of that elusiveness and athleticism. And that's something the Bengals are definitely going to have to capitalize on. If you get those opportunities to get the sacks on Russell Wilson, you absolutely have to. Tends to hold the ball a little bit more than average, 20th in average time to throw, and only 20th in QB scrambles. Talked about how he's kind of lost a little bit of the athleticism, not scrambling as much as he used to. Big part of this offense, a big engine, I would say, of the Steelers' offense is the run game behind the two-headed duo of Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, and both those guys have been really, really good this season. Out of 47 running backs, Jaylen Warren ranks 15th in yards per attempt, 15th in yards after contact on average, which is really impressive for a smaller guy, a guy you usually kind of think has a little bit more shake and wiggle. And then 20.7% breakaway rate, runs that go for 15 plus. So 1 in 5 of his runs are going for long gains. Explosive plays, definitely going to want to watch out for that if you're the Bengals, especially with how lackluster their tackling has been this season. And as a receiver, he's been excellent too. 10th out of 47 running backs in receiving grade and 8th in elusive rating, taking into account his missed tackles forced per attempt. Najee Harris has also been really good in his own right, kind of handling more of the short yardage and goal line bell cow kind of role for the Steelers offense. 31st in yards per attempt this season, as opposed to a little bit higher, but can be the nature of that being the shorter yardage goal line back. Only 27th in yards after contact per attempt, which is really interesting. And mostly because he's 2nd in missed tackles forced this season. So breaking a lot of tackles, like a lot of arm tackles, especially, and just not sound fundamental tackles, not necessarily gaining a lot of yards after the fact, but definitely gaining that extra 2-3 that he needs to get the first down and move the sticks a lot. So credit to him there. And of course, being 2nd in missed tackles forced is going to put you up there in elusive rating. He ranks 7th among running backs this season. Wide receiver on the outside, George Pickens has really come to life since Russell Wilson has kind of taken the reins back over on this offense. He ranks 24th of 100 receivers in yards per reception, 6th in receiving grade, and 8th in yards per route run. So very efficient, very productive, and he's 13th in average depth of target, which again, excuse me, shows that Russ is trusting him a lot in these downfield situations and some of these high risk situations. He's not afraid to unload it to him, and Pickens has absolutely been delivering. So credit to him for continuing to ascend and be really, really good on the field, despite being an interesting character, maybe in between plays and a little bit off the field. But nothing too serious in that matter for George Pickens. Um, Calvin Austin, another counterpart for him, eighth in yards per reception, which is great. Tied for 81st out of 101 receivers in receiving grade, though. Um, 27th in yak per reception and 26th in average depth of target. So again, having a little bit of that downfield element for them as well. Not been very efficient with his opportunities, ranking about average and 45th in yards per route run. And of course, everybody knows Pat Fryermuth, second on the team in targets and receptions, 22nd out of 43 tight ends in PFF grade this season. He is 13th in yards per reception, spends about 55% of his time in the slot, which is eighth most among all of those tight ends. He's also 10th in yards after catch per reception and third in passer rating when targeted. So has been a good receiving option for them. Definitely going to want to watch out for him as that safety outlet and that safety valve and that kind of underneath guy that he can be for Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense. Looking at their offensive line, we were used to them ranking really well as a whole, but this year as a unit, they're 25th in pass block efficiency, which is just pressures per snap with a little bit of weighting towards sacks. Um, Overall, the offensive line has dealt with a lot of injuries. Losing James Daniels is definitely really hurt them. He was one of the best centers in the league before going down with injury. Broderick Jones is still trying to piece together a little bit of his raw physical athletic tools that he has. And Dan Moore has actually been a bright spot for their offensive line at tackle. So looking first at Dan Moore, who spent 3 years with the Steelers already, not grading above 65 in any of his first 3 seasons, but called on to start this year. He now sits at 71 on the season in terms of PFF grade, career high for him. 30th out of 55 tackles since week 7 when Russ returned in PFF grade. So sitting there right about average in tackle for them. He is 31st in pass blocking grade and 38th in run blocking. So we as Bengals fans with offensive line issues have talked constantly about the value of an average tackle. So I'm sure that's not lost on Steelers fans either. Broderick Jones, I talked about him kind of struggling a little bit to find his footing still. 44th in PFF grade out of those 55 tackles, 44th in pass blocking grade, 47th in pass block efficiency, and 25th in run blocking grade. So much better as a run blocker this year than as a pass blocker. Definitely a guy that you can kind of take advantage of in the passing game as a pass protector this season. Rookie Zach Frazier has had to fill in for the aforementioned James Daniels, and he's done really, really well for a rookie. 15th out of 29 centers in PFF grade, 14th in run blocking grade. Has had a little bit of trouble in the passing game, 24th in pass block grade and 21st in pass block efficiency, but really, really good numbers for a rookie center kind of being thrust into action in the middle of the season. Speaking of rookies who've been thrust into action, Mason McCormick is also manning the guard spot on the offensive line across from Isaac Sumalo. And Sumalo has done well, ranking 15th among 59 guards in run block grade. However, as a pass blocker, he's been lackluster, ranking just 48th in overall pass block grade. Mason McCormick, we talked about him being a rookie and kind of thrust into action, and he has not looked good in his first kind of NFL snaps. 55th in PFF grade out of those 58 um, offensive guards that qualify, and also 58th in run blocking grade. So really just struggling there. Flipping over to the defense, where we talked about how it's a strength of this team. Obviously, the defensive line continues to be exceptional. TJ Watt, first in PFF grade, first in run defense grade, fourth in pass rush grade, second in QB hits, fifth in defensive stops. I can go on, but TJ Watt, hands down, every year, year in, year out, one of the best edge defenders in the NFL. Nick Herbig has been filling in opposite a little bit for the injured Alex Highsmith. He has actually been really, really impressive as a second-year player and as a pass rusher. Sixth of 102 edge rushers in PFF grade and third in PFF pass rush grade as well. Really, really impressive stuff. 12th in pass rush productivity, taking into account the value of sacks and weighting them just a little bit more than pressures. Love that as a metric for defensive players to kind of account for the per snap pressures as well as valuing sacks appropriately. Where he kind of has had drawbacks in his game is he is 96th out of 102 edge defenders in missed tackles. So missed tackle rate has been not left some to be desired, but when you're that good as a pass rusher, you can get over a little bit of missed tackles. And then, of course, because of the missed tackles, he is 58th in run defense grade. On the interior, Cameron Hayward does not get enough credit. The guy is second among defensive interiors in pass rush grade, first in pass rush win rate, second in pass rush productivity, first in run defense stops, and first in run defense stop rate. He is an absolute titan on the defensive line in the middle there for the Steelers. Bengals are definitely going to need to be aware of where he is. Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, absolutely going to have their hands full trying to man the interior this week. Newly acquired linebacker Patrick Queen has been pretty solid in coverage, just about average. Out of 52 linebackers, he's 22nd in passer rating when targeted, 27th in coverage grade, but he has really struggled in the run game, 40th in missed tackle rate, 52nd in run stop rate, and 50th out of 52 linebackers in run defense grade. So really bottom of the barrel there in terms of his ability as a run defender, particularly because of the missed tackles, but has been a plus defender in coverage. Across from him, Landon Roberts and rookie linebacker Peyton Wilson have been rotating into the defense. Roberts actually sits third among linebackers in PFF grade and also has been a stalwart run defender with a 91.8 run defense grade. Wilson has been impressive as a rookie, ranking 13th out of 77 linebackers, and he ranks second among rookie linebackers in PFF grade. He's definitely helped to pick up the slack in coverage for them a little bit, somewhere where Roberts is not as good. Wilson has actually managed a 75.4 coverage grade this season, which ranks sixth among all linebackers. Quick look at the defensive back room before we talk about keys to victory. Joey Porter, a guy who a lot of people were fans coming out of the draft. He has struggled a little bit in this year so far in coverage as a Steelers cornerback, 59th out of 73 corners in PFF grade, 58th in coverage grade, and 52nd in run defense grade. However, he always has the ball production, the breakups. He is 33rd out of 73 corners in forced incompletion rate. Could definitely do with a little bit of market improvement, but definitely still has the tools and the ball production to be a problem. Dante Jackson across from him, 63rd in PFF grade, really struggling overall this season, but definitely been good as a run defender, 21st there in run defense grade, 47th in forced incompletion rate. However, he is 70th in coverage grade. So really, really struggling there. And you'll start to see a pattern as we kind of talk about the coverage grades for these defensive backs. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Roll Tide, obviously got Big Al here, Alabama fan here as well. I love Minkah Fitzpatrick, but this has not been his best year. After being one of the best safeties in the league for year after year after year, he's taken a little bit of a step back this year. 23rd among safeties in PFF grade, 26th in coverage grade, and just 35th in forced incompletion rate, which is really interesting for him because he's always been such a really, really good, productive safety when it comes to ball production. He's also 18th in run defense grade. So still holding up there, still in good position, still making plays there. Don't want to disparage him at all. He's still a very talented player, just not playing at the same level he usually does. And then Deshaun Elliott's been really the surprise of the secondary for them. He's actually ranked 16th out of 65 safeties this year in coverage grade, 11th in total grade, 5th in run defense grade, and he's third best in missed tackle rate. So really, really sure-handed tackler, and he's 6th in run stop rate, which means he's getting a lot of good defensive stops that constitute a loss for the opposing offense. With all that in mind, our keys to victory, starting with the Bengals offense, you have to challenge the secondary and coverage. Obviously, we talked about Joey Porter and Dante Jackson having issues in coverage already. Minkah Fitzpatrick being a little bit more inconsistent than we're used to. You definitely need to lean into the strength of your team and try to pass on them. However, the other key to victory is avoiding the dangers of the D line, and that's tough to do when you're passing the ball. So how do you do that? You got to move the pocket or slow the pass rush using play action. You've got to use motion to kind of displace the strength of the formations for the defense and kind of keep them on their toes there. Communication can all like trying to communicate on that motion can also cause those problems and make them slow down. And then you use the quick game as much as you can, trying to make sure the pass rush can't get to Joe Burrow. And then obviously no turnovers, make the Steelers offense try and keep up with you. We talked about how they've struggled to generate touchdowns and offense consistently, relying on a lot of field goals. If you can just take care of the ball and keep pace with the offense, you can put the pressure on the Steelers. Looking at the defense, Trey Hendrickson has to dominate Dan Moore. That's a matchup he just has to win. The interior has to get pressure. These guys are struggling on pass blocking grades, and Russ has a high pressure to sack rate. Got to get that interior pressure. Secondary just needs to keep the big plays in front of them. They like to target downfield. The A-dots downfield. George Pickens has been successful downfield. Calvin Austin's been successful downfield. Keep it in front of you. Make them be consistent. It's where they struggle in the game. And then lastly, you got to have good tackling fundamentals for Najee and Jaylen Warren, who are obviously both top 10 in the elusive rating. Very, very elusive running backs. So definitely want to make sure that we're watching out for them. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. Know we ran through a lot there. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, help us to continue to bring content like this. Thank you to TWSN for always, as always, for bringing us this content. And we will see you guys next week. Hoo day.